I want to welcome you back to the D-Lo Show. I am your host, Ryan D-Lo Delosier, and I want to take a look at another case here today. For this case, this is one that I've had my eye on for a while, but it's my first time doing an episode on it, so we'll take a look. This one is pending, so the person that we refer to in this is actually innocent until proven guilty, and at this time, these are just accusations. This is an active case, and it has not gone through all of the legal things that have gone on, even though it happened back in 2023, which is crazy. It's going a while ago. It's like been over 2.5 years ago that this happened. So what we're looking at today is the case against Teddy Lee Craven, and this case is case number 23-1-01811-39. And it involves serious allegations of sexual misconduct involving a minor in Yakima County. Based on news reports that I've seen and our news articles and things from KIMA TV, KNDO, News Now, Yakima Herald, I got a breakdown here of just some of the details that go along with the case, along with the defendant's background and the current legal status. I've also found stuff. I looked through the Odyssey website as well and just searched through the court records and things like that as well too. So the defendant's name, once again, is Teddy Lee Craven, and he was born on February 11th of 1979. He faces 2 counts of rape of a child in the second degree and 1 count of child molestation in the second degree. The case is, as I mentioned earlier, currently active in the Yakima County Superior Court. Actually, if you are listening to this as I am posting it, it has been within 1 week of it happening. The last court date was on March 13th of 2026, and it was a motion hearing with Shane Silverthorne. And they just went through and looked to make sure. I think it was a readiness. I'm going to take a look here real quick, just kind of do a back and see what the case was on this particular date. So, looking ahead, I'm right here in the Odyssey portal. This is Yakima Courts. It's an online case search. You could check it out as well, too. Just look up Odyssey portal, Washington State Courts online, and I pushed the wrong button. Hey, I'll come back to that once I get it loaded here anyways. So, just some of the things going on. So, if I wanted to take a look here as well from the articles, at the time of his arrest in 2023, Craven was a prominent employee within the East Valley School District right here in Yakima, and he served as a behavior interventionist specialist at East Valley Central Middle School. So if you're familiar with that, that is a grade 6, 7, 8. And he was an assistant football coach at East Valley High School and an assistant basketball coach in 2022. As far as contracts that he had, he was also under contract to serve as an assistant softball coach for the 23-24 school year. And then following his arrest, he was placed on paid administrative leave, as they do in these cases. And district officials stated that the charges were not related to his official employment duties. So not related to anything that was going on at school. This happened outside of the school day. So I was able to get back to the most recent hearings right here. So back in September 10th of 2025, there was a readiness hearing at the Yakima County Courthouse. And then the one that happened most recently, actually there was a trial confirmation hearing on January 23rd of 2026. And then there was a status conference, which happened on March 13th of 2026. So just about a week ago. That happened right there. So, just kind of going back to that as I was looking for those records, they finally popped up. The internet takes its time sometimes. So, the allegations that went along with this one, investigation began after a 12-year-old girl gave a note to a school resource officer at East Valley Central, describing the abuse that happened. And during an interview with the county's Child Advocacy Center, the victim alleged that Craven had raped her almost daily since September of 2023. The victim also reported several instances of being groped by the suspect, by Mr. Teddy Lee Craven. So again, these are all allegations. This has not gone through the process yet, the legal process. It's still working its magic as it goes through. So he was arrested on November 29th of 2023, and as I mentioned, that's a little over 2.5 years ago, and then released after posting $50,000 bail on December 1st of 2023. This case has seen multiple continuances over the last 2 years. So on November 30th of 2023, there was a preliminary appearance, and during that time, a no contact order was granted. And then on December 14th of 2023, Craven entered his plea, which, as you may or may not have guessed, it was a not guilty plea. Yep, if you guessed that, you were right on the money, because we are still pursuing trial, and that was 2023, so a couple years ago. And then on March 13th of 2026, there was a mandatory status conference that was held. And then on May 1st of 2026, we are scheduled to have our trial confirmation hearing, and that's supposed to be at 9 a.m. here in Yakima Superior Court. And then on May 11th of 2026, we are scheduled to have a jury trial to go through and determine whether or not Teddy Lee Craven is guilty. Then they'll go, however the case may be, of rape of a child in second degree and child molestation in second degree. So that is scheduled once again for May 11th of 2026. In his personal records, so marriage records indicate Teddy Lee Craven, he married Allison Elizabeth Parker in Yakima in August of 2019, so pretty recently. And then he's a 1998 graduate of Cle Elum Roslyn High School down there. So if you're wondering where that's at, it's kind of between, like, Cle Elum is close to Ellensburg, Washington on I-90. It's probably about, I would say, around 100 miles east of Seattle. So plus or minus right there is the Cle Elum Roslyn area. Pretty nice little area. Washington sentencing for these charges is governed by the Sentencing Reform Act, the SRA, which uses a grid based on two factors: the seriousness level of the crime and the defendant's offender score, so criminal history. Because the charges involve a minor, they also typically fall under the Determinate Plus sentencing scheme. The classification and seriousness levels in Washington, each felony is assigned a seriousness level from 1 to 16. Some of these that go along right here. So the rape of a child in the second degree, RCW 9A.44.076. It's a Class A felony, and it's the seriousness level of this. Remember, it was 1 to 16. This is an 11, so it's pretty high right there. So that gives it a statutory maximum of life in prison. And again, that's second degree. So yeah, this one's pretty high, 11 out of 16. And then child molestation in the second degree, this is a Class B felony, and then the seriousness level on this one is a 7. So, halfway there to 16, and that has a statutory minimum of 10 years in prison. The standard range is a presumptive amount of time a judge must give unless there's aggravating or mitigating factors. If the defendant has an offender score of 0, meaning there's no prior criminal history, the ranges are for rape of a child 2, it's 102 to 136 months, so approximately 8.5 to 11.3 years. And then child molestation 2 is 15 to 20 months, approximately 1.25 to 1.5 years. If a defendant is convicted of multiple counts at once, each count scores against the others. So in Washington, a current sex offense conviction typically adds 3 points to the offender score for other sex offense counts. This means if there are 2 counts, the sentencing range for primary charge would jump significantly. So, for example, if it's a level 11 with a score of 3, it's going to be 162 to 216 months. The Determinate Plus system, so for offenses like rape of a child 2, Washington uses an indeterminate sentencing model known as Determinate Plus, and again, the judge sets a minimum term within the standard range, so 102 months, so the minimum, and then the maximum, the judge must set a maximum term as the statutory maximum, and then for this one, it's life for a Class A, so the maximum is life, so he could be in there for life for this case. The defendant is not automatically released after the minimum term. Instead, the Indeterminate Sentence Review Board, the ISRB, must determine if the offender is likely to reoffend. And if they are deemed a risk, they can be held for up to their full natural life. The prosecution can seek an exceptional sentence above the standard range if they prove aggravating circumstances to the jury. Given the context of this case, 2 specific factors are often relevant. So for the first part right here, this is RCW 9.94A.535 and then 3 N allows for a higher sentence if the defendant used a position of trust or fiduciary responsibility, such as being a teacher, coach, or behavioral interventionist, or school employee, to facilitate the crime. So that would be this right here. This is a abuse of a position of trust. Okay, obviously this is a position of trust. We're a teacher in a spot right here. And then an ongoing pattern of abuse can apply if there is evidence of multiple incidents over a prolonged period. And then going along with this, so some alternatives for sentencing as well. This one's the SSOSA, the Special Sex Offender Sentencing Alternative. In some cases, a first-time offender may be eligible for a SOSA, that, again, Special Sex Offender Sentencing Alternative. This allows the judge to suspend the prison sentence in favor of intensive professional treatment and community supervision. However, this is discretionary and depends on a variety of factors, including the nature of the crime and an evaluation of the defendant's amendability to treatment. There's also what's known as the two strikes law. Rape of a child 2 is considered a most serious offense, so it's a strike. Under Washington's Persistent Offender Accountability Act, a second conviction for a strike offense results in a mandatory sentence of life without the possibility of parole. So because he's working in the school, this guy doesn't have any offenses. I can almost with certainty say that. You know, they always check that stuff before you get in. You get a background check. So he's not been convicted of anything else. That's my presumption at this time. So beyond the details of the active criminal case and his employment at East Valley School District, public records and historical news archives provide more context on Teddy Lee Craven's personal and professional background in the Yakima area. While here in Yakima, Craven was a well-known figure in the local sports before entering the educational field. For his collegiate career, he was a standout basketball player at Central Washington University, and records show that he played for the Wildcats through the end of the 2000s, graduated in 2006. Prior to CWU, he was a basketball player at Yakima Valley College as well. And then before his arrest, he was heavily involved, as I mentioned earlier, in regional athletic community. In addition to his football and basketball coaching roles at East Valley High School, he'd also been contracted as an assistant softball coach for the 23-24 season. And as I mentioned earlier, he graduated from Cleella Roslyn High School in 1998, and historical records from his senior year suggest a close family connection to others in his class, including others that are here too, Casey Lee Craven and Timmy Lee Craven. Following his high school graduation, he attended Yakima Valley College before transferring to Central Washington University, where he earned his degree in 2006. And as a behavior interventionist specialist at East Valley Central Middle School, Craven's primary responsibility was to work with students who struggled with behavioral or social emotional challenges. This role typically involves implementing behavior plans, monitoring student progress, and providing direct support to keep students engaged in the learning environment. And he has been a longtime resident of the Yakima area, maintaining deep ties to the community through his own education and his decades of involvement in local schools and sports. As noted in the court documents, he remains on paid administrative leave from East Valley School District. The district has clarified that the allegations, while involving a minor, were not reported to have occurred during his official work hours or as part of his school-sanctioned duties. His trial remains set for May 11th, 2026 in Yakima County Superior Court. And then looking at this, one of the concerns that I had with this is how long it has taken. I mean, this happened back in 2023, and here we are sitting in 2026, pretty much well into the year. So the extended timeline of this case, spanning roughly 2.5 years from the initial arrest in late 2023 to the scheduled May 2026 trial, is reflective of several systematic and procedural factors currently affecting the legal system in Yakima County and also in Washington State. So based on the current court conditions and the nature of the changes, several factors likely contributed to the duration of this case. And so the first one right here I'm going to take a look at is Yakima County Superior Court. It has been operating under a significant case backlog that has reached critical levels in recent years. For nearly 30 years, the county has had only 8 Superior Court judges, despite substantial population growth. As of early 2026, legislation, which is in part House Bill 2412, was introduced to add a 9th judge to address the more than 3,000 cases that have been pending over the last 2 years. While criminal cases generally take priority over civil matters due to speedy trial requirements, the sheer volume of high-level felony filings often results in trials being scheduled many months or even years in advance. The state of Washington and Yakima County in particular has been experiencing what local judges have called a crisis-level shortages of public defenders. Public defenders are often carrying caseloads that are far excessive of the recommended limits. This frequency necessitates continuances, delays, so that the defense has adequate time to review evidence, interview witnesses, and prepare a strategy for the complex Class A felony trial that's going to happen with this one. The shortage has been so severe that it triggered a class action lawsuit against the county for failing to provide timely legal counsel for the indignant defendants. Cases involving allegations of sexual misconduct against minors involve high procedural intensity, which naturally extends the timeline. These cases often require detailed forensic interviews conducted by specialized child advocacy centers and extensive DNA or digital evidence analysis, which can take months to process. Both the prosecution and defense often utilize expert witnesses, such as child psychologists or medical experts. Coordinating the schedules and reports of these specialists frequently leads to trial delays. And while Washington state law, the specific law if you want to go look it up, is RCW 10-46-085, aims to limit continuances in cases with minor victims to reduce trauma, courts still grant delays if there are substantial and compelling reasons, such as the need for the defense to effectively prepare for the trial to ensure a fair verdict. A significant portion of the time between an arrest and a trial is spent in the discovery phase, the exchange of evidence between the two parties. In a case involving a professional educator and a coach, there may be thousands of pages of personnel records, digital communications, and witness statements to go through and take a look at. The defense may also file motions to suppress certain evidence or challenge the admissibility of statements, each of which requires separate hearings before the trial can begin. A recent mandatory status conference on March 13th of 2026 indicates that the court is now making its final push towards the May 11th trial date, suggesting that most of these procedural hurdles have finally been cleared. So we'll be taking a look at this case as we come about. This one's a little closer than some of the other ones to reaching a conclusion. So I'm going to keep this one on just kind of simmering on the back burner back there, and we will come back to this one. Trust me on that as news comes out. We'll put this one on my radar for May 11th to kind of see what's going on with this one. So in the meantime, there's other cases you want me to cover. Please feel free to let me know. I'm going to keep going through these and piling through, seeing what's going on here around Yakima. If you want something else, let me know. If you like what you're hearing, go ahead, like, follow, subscribe, tell your friends, and give me that 5-star review. And if you got comments, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, you can message me there, comment on posts. I hope you're having an awesome day, and take care.